The Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is arguably the best looking Galaxy Watch from the newest 8 series. So the Galaxy Watch 8 right here and the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 were released at the same time. And I think this one looks the best. But does it also perform the best out of all these devices? So is it good at tracking your heart rate during exercise? Can it track your sleep accurately? And finally, how good is it at tracking your location or your GPS? Or in other words, if you're riding your bike, can it track your speed accurately? Or if you're running outside, can it track your pace accurately? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna test in this video. My name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. And in this video, we're gonna use a bunch of data to analyze the performance of the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. Many of you have been requesting this video, and for several reasons, the main one being a problem with exporting my data from Samsung Health. I wasn't able to make that video immediately, but finally I collected a bunch more data and the results are super interesting. So let's dive right in. And as always, let's start with the heart rate tracking performance. Now, the easiest exercise for a device to track is generally indoor cycling because there isn't that much movement. And here you can see the results for the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic for indoor cycling, where the better the agreement with the reference device, the more dots there are close to this blue line. And this actually looks very good. Also, the correlation here is quite high at 0.96. Now, this correlation here cannot be higher than 1, so a correlation of 0.96 is pretty good. Generally, I say any device with a correlation of 0.95 or higher is good enough for me, and that's true for the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic in this case. Let's still take a look at some of those individual bike rides so we can actually see how it performed. Still, there could be some weird issues, but overall, this is looking pretty good. But let's take a look. So I'm now gonna go in reverse chronological order to look at some of the bike rides. So these are indoor bike rides and I always do intervals. And you can also see that right here. So I have an increase in heart rate for my first interval. Then I took quite a long break. Second interval, third, fourth, and fifth. And the Galaxy Watch 8 in red, or the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic in red, followed along very well with the reference in blue-green. You cannot almost see the reference in blue-green. That means that the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic did really well. This other bike ride also looks really good. Some minor details are missed, but this is almost perfect. Here I actually started late. This was a longer indoor bike ride, but it also did very well. Here there were some minor issues. So here twice it detected a slightly too high heart rate. But again, to me, this will be good enough. Yes, there's a minor issue right here and a minor issue right here. But overall, for the most part, I think this is good enough performance. But let's actually compare this performance to that of much of the competition out there. And that is displayed in this overview right here, where the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is marked in red. Now, basically, the further to the top right the device is, the better is its correlation with the reference. And again, that correlation that we were just looking at is along the horizontal axis here. And as you can see, the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is somewhere in the middle with a correlation of 0.96. But honestly, it's just good enough. But let's zoom in a little bit so we can read those labels better. And that zoomed in view is displayed right here. So these are just the devices with a correlation of 0.95 or higher. And as you can see, the Galaxy Watch 8 right here performed very similarly. Let's see if we can find other Galaxy Watches. The Galaxy Watch 7 I retested also performed very similarly. So likely, because all these devices have the same sensor, we get more or less similar performance. Now you'll always see the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic here twice. That's just a bug in my code. It's basically the same result shown twice. But overall, we can see there are still better devices out there. Devices that show even fewer issues than the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. Let's take a look at those. So these are just the devices right here with a correlation of 0.98 or higher. And the best ones here are some Huawei devices, the Pixel Watch on Android, that's actually an even better alternative, even the Pixel Watch 3 right here. There's also the Amazfit Helio strap and different Apple Watches. All of these are doing very well, better than the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. However, I already think that the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is doing a good enough job. So for cycling indoors, I can recommend the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic, at least based on my testing. But let's now take a look at some harder exercises. And to start with, let's start with running. I was only able to do 2 runs with the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic because I had an injury and I'm only now recovering from it. But let's take a look at some of those results. And these are displayed right here. So this is a similar overview to before. And again, we want the points to be as close to the blue line as possible. And here we're starting to see some issues. Yes, the points are generally still close to the blue line, but there's quite a few below it right now, indicating that in some moments the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic detected a too low heart rate. And actually looking at this data a bit more, this makes me think there could potentially be cadence lock, meaning that for some time at least, it was measuring the frequency at which I was running and not the frequency of my heart rate. But we can actually check the individual runs and find out. So right here we have the first run, and this is the run that showed an issue, I believe. Because here we can see that the red line of the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic was below the blue line of the reference device. So here it had an issue. For this other run, on the other hand, things looked a lot better. There were still some moments where it all of a sudden deviated, but otherwise this run doesn't look too bad. The other one didn't look that great. So for running, I would say I have somewhat mixed results. It could definitely be a bit better, but let's quickly put this into perspective by comparing this performance to that of the competition. And that is displayed in this overview right here. And this doesn't look very good. As you can see, many devices did a lot better than the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. Let's zoom in a bit again. So let's take a look at all devices with a correlation of 0.8 or higher. So those are these devices right here. So the Galaxy Watch Classic is right here. You can actually see that my testing of the Galaxy Watch 8 wasn't that far away. So I have to say here, I could only do limited testing with running. So maybe on average, most runs wouldn't have such severe issues, but it's definitely not the best device out there. There are a lot of devices that are consistently doing better. Let's zoom in a bit again. So these are just the devices with a correlation of 0.95 or higher. And generally, again, Apple Watches are doing really well. Also the Pixel Watch, the Amazfit Helio strap, in this case worn on the biceps, my preferred position for the Helio strap. And we can also see some Garmin devices, like for instance the Forerunner 165, 570 and 970 also did quite a good job, and also the Coral Space 3. So in my retesting, for some reason the Pace 3 did a little bit less well. I cannot really explain that. These are the results as I have them on my body. They're not perfect, but they will give you a good first impression of the performance. But let's now make things even more difficult by taking a look at the results for biking outside. Before doing that, running this channel next to my full-time job is neither easy or cheap. I have to pay my editor Alex, for instance. I have 1, 2, 3 cameras right here, a bunch of studio lights. I bought all these Galaxy watches myself. Now, if you want to support, there's multiple ways of doing that. The most direct way is by becoming a YouTube member, which is basically like Patreon on YouTube, and it gives you early access to some of my videos, like this one right here. Another option is to use one of my affiliate links down below. Since we're just talking about running, if you want the best customized personal running plans out there, I use the Runner app for that. It has really changed my running game, and you can get a 2-week free trial with my affiliate link up here. Or if you buy anything at all on Amazon, be it a Galaxy Watch, a Galaxy Watch Ultra, Galaxy Watch 8, an Apple Watch, a Pixel Watch, whatever, and you want to support the channel, if you use my general Amazon affiliate link, you'll be supporting the channel and it doesn't cost you any extra. You can even make it your default way of going to Amazon by bookmarking it. So if you use that as your way of going to Amazon, you'll be supporting the channel every time you make a purchase on that website. And there's also a bunch of other affiliate links in the description below, for instance, for the Whoop strap, which I'm wearing on this shirt right here, but also to the 8 Sleep Pod, my favorite sleep improvement device. If you want to consider any of this, that would be greatly appreciated. You can also subscribe to the channel. And I just want to thank you for everybody that's already supported so far. But let's get back to the data and let's take a look at the results for biking. Right here we have the results for cycling outside. Most of these rides are me cycling to and from work, but there's also some longer bike rides in here with my road bike. And this actually looks quite okay because this is generally one of the hardest exercises for a device to track. And here the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is actually quite close to the blue line in many cases. Still, there's also quite a few points above and below the blue line, indicating that sometimes they detected too high and sometimes a too low heart rate. But overall, better than I expected based on the running results. But let's take a look at some of those bike rides, because 0.91 is actually not that bad compared to some of the competition. So here we have one example bike ride with the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic in red and the reference in blue-green. This looks quite okay. Some of the details are lost, but still not bad. This bike ride is also not that terrible. Here a bit more is missed, like right here, but also right here. this is also not looking that bad. This ride is quite a bit worse, honestly. So maybe also sometimes the particular fit on the wrist for that specific bike ride also makes a difference. I always try to be very consistent to position it high enough away from the wrist bone, but who knows, maybe there is some deviation sometimes. Still not looking that bad overall. I would say generally an okay performance, so there are bike rides like this one right here where there's more deviation. But let's again compare this performance to the competition, and that's displayed right here with the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic marked in red. And here you can see that compared to the competition, it does seem to be in the upper middle class of devices. So not that terrible, maybe good enough for many of you. Not as good as some of the top performers, but let's zoom in a bit again. And right here we have a somewhat zoomed in view with just the devices of a correlation of 0.8 or higher. And as you can see, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is close to my results for the Galaxy Watch 7 right here. We also have the Galaxy Watch 8 not that far away. So again, very similar results to devices with similar sensors. There's also the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 right here. So a decent though imperfect performance. It might just be good enough for many of you. But again, if you look at the top performers right here, we have Apple Watches, the Pixel Watch, and also the Amazfit Helio strap on the bicep. So again, you can find better devices, but if you really like the Samsung ecosystem, you just like the design of their devices, then the newer Galaxy Watch Ultra, maybe the Galaxy Watch 8 or 8 Classic all seem to have more or less similar performance. So then it depends on the design and it might just be good enough for you. The heart rate tracking performance isn't perfect, but it does seem to have improved over the years. So it's good that they're working on this. Now to close off, let's take a look at the hardest exercise for many devices to track, and that is weightlifting. So here we have the results for weightlifting, and this really doesn't look very good. Now most smartwatches don't work very well for weightlifting, so it's kind of okay to see that it didn't perform amazing here. So we see quite a low correlation of 0.67, and especially in the higher heart rate range, there are big deviations. But let's take a look at some of the individual weightlifting sessions. So here we have the first session. And here we can see that sometimes it detected too high heart rate, sometimes it missed the peaks in my heart rate, so really not looking that good. For this other weightlifting session, it basically missed all the peaks in my heart rate. Also here, sometimes a too high heart rate, sometimes too low heart rates. So for weightlifting, I wouldn't use the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic, but honestly, generally, I wouldn't use any device for weightlifting. So here we have an overview of how different devices performed for weightlifting. Yes, the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is amongst the lower performers, and there are better devices out there. Only basically Apple Watches and some in-ear devices are good enough. But still, those have dropouts sometimes. So the problem with weightlifting is that there's so much tension on your arms that it's very hard for any device to measure your heart rate. So in that case, I would recommend you to use a chest strap. Just using a chest strap either connected to your phone or maybe to a sports watch. As far as I know, at the moment, you cannot connect an external heart rate monitor to a Galaxy Watch, so you have to use only the internal heart rate monitor. But if you use the Polar Beat or Polar Flow app, for instance, you can connect an external heart rate monitor and still track everything even without owning a smartwatch. But then you need an external chest strap, and the most reliable way is to use an ECG chest strap. So these are the results for heart rate tracking. But the next thing I want to talk about is sleep stage tracking. And this is something where Samsung has shown major improvements over the last year or so. The previous generation of devices didn't seem to perform that well. And I think there was a firmware, not a hardware improvement of their sleep stage tracking performance. So they must have done some kind of sleep study or maybe taken data that they already had and devised a better algorithm that takes things like your heart rate and your movement to measure in a way your sleep stages. So let's see how that performed. And the way I test that is by comparing it against an ECG chest strap that can actually measure my brain waves. This is sort of a small version of what we use in the lab for the full scientific sleep measurements. And we still use this small one in the lab as well. This gives us a general impression of my sleep stages. It's not perfect, especially for awake time. So we're not going to look at awake time. We're going to focus on deep sleep, light sleep, and REM sleep. So let's take a look and let's see how the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic performed. And right here we have the sleep tracking results with on top the sleep stages according to the reference device. and on the left the sleep stages according to the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. And I'm gonna focus on deep sleep, light sleep and REM sleep, where if the two would perfectly agree, all values on the diagonal right here should be 100%. So first of all, we see that 74% of what was deep sleep according to the reference was also deep sleep according to the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic, so that's pretty okay. And most of it was confused with light sleep in this case. Now, light sleep agreement is actually the worst at about 60%, and this is also what we saw for the Galaxy Watch Ultra from 2025, where light sleep seems to be the sleep stage that it struggles with most, and instead it detects a bunch of extra deep sleep and a bunch of extra REM sleep, and even a bunch of extra awake time probably, but this is a bit harder to say. So light sleep is the thing it struggles with most, and it overestimates deep sleep and REM sleep for what should have likely been light sleep, at least based on the reference. But the REM sleep agreement actually, on the other hand, is pretty decent at about a 71% agreement. And this is usually the sleep stage that devices struggle with most. So for some reason, REM sleep is quite hard to detect, at least for the older sleep stage algorithms like the ones from Garmin, for instance, or Amazfit. And Samsung does seem to have shown some improvement here. So overall, definitely not bad. For me, on a healthy, normal sleeper, usually I get slightly higher values with some devices, like the Apple Watch, the 8 Sleep Pod, a bunch more. But I can actually show you that by comparing this performance to that of many other devices out there. And that is shown in this overview right here. So this overview shows you many of the devices I've tested in the past, where the average agreement with the individual sleep stages is shown along the horizontal axis, weighing each of them equally, so REM sleep, deep sleep, and light sleep. And on the vertical axis, I take the worst out of those three, because I want the device to be good at everything. So it's also an indication if it's pretty poor at one of them, that it's not likely a good sleep stage tracker, even if the agreement is 100% with the other sleep stages. And where is the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic? Well, it is right here. So it's very close to my testing of the Ultra 2 and not that far away from my testing of the Galaxy Watch 8. They're all basically in this area right here, sort of in the second tier of devices, together with the old algorithm of Fitbit and Google and the old algorithm of Whoop. Now both Fitbit / Google, basically the same company, and Whoop recently had an update to their sleep stage tracking, which improved their results quite a bit. Actually, I did a big sleep tracking study with the University of Salzburg, and there we actually see a big difference between the old algorithm of Whoop and the new algorithm, but more on that in a future video. What we see here is that now the Galaxy Watch appears to be a decent sleep stage tracker, though it's not one of the top brands at the moment. At the moment, I would say that the top brands are Apple, Sleep 2 or Nukua. We have Pixel / Google, we have the Whoop strap, though the Galaxy Watch is actually quite close to that. The Oura Ring, so that's 5, and finally the 8 Sleep Pod. So 6 brands are doing best, but the Galaxy Watch is already very close. Now all of these will give you decent sleep stage tracking performance. They all have their strengths and their weaknesses. One weakness of the Apple Watch appears to be deep sleep tracking, but they actually at the end of 2025 made a major update or a minor update to their sleep stage tracking again, which does seem to have improved that. And I'm going to discuss that in a future video. For now, I want to say that the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is doing a pretty decent job. Not quite as good as the top devices out there, but getting close already. By the way, if you're wondering about the 8 Sleep Pod, it's my favorite sleep improvement device. It's not a wearable, but it's something that goes around your mattress and also integrated into the blanket that you use, and it can actively cool and heat each side of the bed independently. Now, the reason it's my favorite sleep improvement device is because I very much struggle to stay cool in bed in summer, and it's improved my sleep quality so much on those hot days. And it's also really nice in the winter on those cold days to have the bed preheated before I get in it. And my partner, when I have one, can choose her side independently because I almost always sleep colder than any partner I've had. Now, if you're interested, I actually have an affiliate link to the 8 Sleep Pod in the description below. It's really expensive, so only get it if you can actually afford it. But it will give you the best discount if you actually decide to get it. But again, if you're in the Samsung ecosystem, based on this testing for more or less normal nights of sleep in a healthy sleeper, it appears to be an okay sleep stage tracker. It gives you some rough impressions of your sleep stages. and it's definitely getting up there. They're not quite up there with the best performers. So that's sleep stage tracking, better than expected, not quite as good as some of the best devices. But next, as a sporty person, what is also important to me is knowing my speed when I do a bike ride, my pace when I do a run, and also knowing my total distance on my runs and rides. And for that, the GPS tracking is very important, or actually GNSS. So basically any type of satellite navigation, not just GPS. So let's see how the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic performed for that. And to test it, I did 2 types of tests, one cycling and one running. During cycling, what I do is I cycle the exact same route several times and then check if those routes overlap. If they overlap very well, that likely means that the GPS tracking was very good. Or conversely, what we can say that if there are big deviations between the signals, then it's very likely that the GPS tracking is not very good. And I did something similar for running, but here I did 2 runs and I ran in the exact same circle many times. And again, we want the signals to overlap. So let's have a look at those results. And let's start by taking a look at the results for, I think, 6 times I cycled to work. Now, I don't want to show you where I live, but basically almost all of the signals were acquired instantly, which is good because for many devices, it takes quite a while for them to acquire the signal. So that the signal is acquired fast is a good signal. And that's actually a good quality because some watches actually take quite a while to acquire the first signal. And that's kind of annoying if you have to stand in place. But here the signal was acquired fast, so that's good. But let's now take a look at the consistency between the signals. And that's not the best I've seen, at least not in the beginning for this ride. So right here we see quite some deviation. And here where I often have to wait in front of the traffic light, you can also see that signals shift a little bit. There continues to be some deviation right here. And also around the corner, there's quite some shift between the devices. Also right here, very inconsistent. Then here it actually starts to look better. So getting a bit close to each other. Here there's also less interference for building, so here it's looking quite good. Some deviation around the corner. Here it's looking quite okay, though again more deviation than for some other devices. Around the corner here, let's see how much shift there was. Some shift waiting in front of the traffic light, but not terrible. Then here looking quite okay, then here a lot of deviation again. So this is really not looking good around this area. Mediocre performance, I would say. Let's take a look at the similar results, but now for, I think, about 10 times I cycled back from work. So I have 2 working locations, one right here and one right here. And as you can see, the signal was always acquired almost instantly. So that's at least good. Here there was one time a delay in acquiring the signal, or maybe I started it late, but I think it was acquired late. Here we see some deviation, so not that good yet. Here it's starting to look better. So here we have less deviation. Let's zoom out a little bit. So this actually looks quite good, though here we have quite a bit of deviation again. Yeah, this is not that great. Then here around the roundabout, we can often see if there are some issues. Here there was actually some construction or something, so one time I went around the other side. But again, more deviation than I'd like to see, maybe also some smoothing of the signal. Also right here, not looking that great. Here, this signal's all over the place, and the same for this one right here. So overall, honestly, not that great. I've definitely seen a lot better. Also right here, and probably because I went under a building here for just a little bit after I really struggled to acquire the signal again. Overall, not looking amazing so far. Definitely not the worst I've seen, but for instance, the Apple Watch Ultra 3 did do better, though that is a much more expensive device. Usually sports devices like Garmin, Coros, Suunto, Polar are better at these kind of things like GPS tracking. But to close off, let's take a look at running as well. Those results are right here for the first run. So I ran in the same circle many times. And this honestly also isn't looking very good. So there's a bigger wall on this side, so on the right side right here. And there's a lot of deviation between the signals. The left side looks a bit better, but still a lot more noisy than other devices. I'm not that happy with this. This other run on another day looks a bit cleaner, honestly. It was only 3 days apart. Again, on the right side, more deviation than the left side. Though for some reason, this actually looks much more acceptable. So a lot of variation, it appears. Some parts are good, some parts are not good. Not really sure what's going on. Overall, I would say a mediocre to upper middle class performance, maybe upper middle class performance. For heart rate tracking, more or less upper middle class to middle class. Sleep stage tracking, really upper middle class, close to some of the better performers. GPS tracking mediocre. So on average, upper middle class of a device. So definitely not bad. It is starting to show that over the generation, Samsung is improving their health and sports tracking, and we get more or less the same performance from older devices, whether it be the Galaxy Watch Ultra that recently released or the new version, the Galaxy Watch 8 or the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. Now in terms of design, I do prefer both the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic and the Galaxy Watch 8 over the Galaxy Watch Ultra. Just don't like that kind of chunky design if I have the choice. It's just not that clean looking. The Galaxy Watch 8 Classic looks a bit more classy and classic, but I also like the clean design of the Galaxy Watch 8. So in the end, I would just care about battery life, but probably even more design if you're gonna choose between these devices. If you're in the Samsung ecosystem, it's actually not the worst choice out there. But if you're on Android, in terms of performance, I would prefer a Pixel Watch. They're just doing better, both in terms of sleep stage tracking and heart rate tracking. Now, of course, then you have to like the design of the Pixel Watch, but it is just what it is. Let me just look up one thing, because previously I said you couldn't connect an external heart rate monitor to the Galaxy Watch, but I'm not entirely sure if that changed at some point. So I'll check that for you and then make my final remarks.
Many minutes later.
So as far as I could find, you cannot connect an external heart rate monitor to the Galaxy Watch. So that would have been a plus compared to the Pixel Watch, but as far as I know, you can't. If you have different information, let us know in the comments below. So again, it's not a bad choice. There are just better choices out there if you purely look at performance. Again, it depends on what you are interested in. If you're already in the Samsung ecosystem, it might make sense, and you often can get quite good deals on Galaxy Watches. Much better deals than on Apple Watches, for instance. Now, if you do decide to get a Galaxy Watch 8, Galaxy Watch 8 Classic, a Galaxy Ring, maybe you want a Polar Loop or a Whoop strap, an 8 Sleep Pod, an Apple Watch, another device, or anything at all on Amazon for that matter, even something as small as toilet paper. You want to support the channel and at the same time support your wallet and get the best discount possible. There are different affiliate links in the description below. Now, given that you watched this whole video on the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic, I think you might like my long-term review on the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 right here, or this video on the 8 Sleep Pod.